This is Critical Nonsense, your high-low-brow show about culture, science, and tech. This week, Aaron and Joey talk about the Goldilocks zone of weird.
Woo! And you say, only hear what this pod sounds like, a Joey.
That's what an Aaron sounds like this morning. Thank you.
And we'll see how this goes, because there's no executive producer and Limp Bizkit Jess Vander here this week. It is just Aaron and I.
And in addition to that, we're doing we're doing Critical Nonsense a la speed dating methodology, kind of. You probably already saw that the episode is only 15-ish minutes, or however short this is. So listeners, this is going to be a micro for your ear holes. This is our gift to you.
Because Aaron and I talked for an hour instead of recording an episode and found ourselves where we are. Aaron, question.
Joey, answer.
I saw something recently that was someone just said it was a shower thought of normal behavior is forgotten, only weird behavior survives.
Ooh.
But I was thinking about some of my own neuroses and, self-flagellation in my internal monologue about my peculiarities and sort of sharp edges and things like that. And it's got me into this mode of thinking about whether there is a Goldilocks zone of weirdness or a way of being weird that feels like you can navigate through the normal, maybe. And so my question for you, Aaron, is where is the Goldilocks zone of weird?
Man, first of all, I love me a good open-ended question, and that, hang a wreath on it. That's it. That was I like that one. Second is, I use that response to highlight the fact that, I'm biased in my way that I think about this, because I actually find joy, and I find joy personally, socially, and in ideas, in things that are always just bouncing around in that to try to figure it out. I love weird. I am weird. I don't consider myself normal. And I think, again, just kind of disclosing biases and things like that, I think that anyone who agrees to not value fitting in, to some degree believes in, well, I guess they believe in weird. They may not wonder where the Goldilocks zone of weird is. When it comes to that, though, I think that gets a little bit, I'll throw that out there as a little bit of a hot take. I do think the idea of a Goldilocks zone is potentially as dangerous as the idea of norms, of normalities, right?
Okay.
So getting spicy.
Well.
I mean, and I think that when let's take for example automotive design. And of course I'm going to make it
Shall we?
Shall we for a moment? Please get into my Ford Pinto. I think that I think design is a great example of when we think of weird as just unexpected, regardless of intent, regardless of, I think, the way that it's delivered itself, it's valuable because it just disrupts how you think you're going to interact with something. And so the reason I bring up automotive design is because there are a lot of ways that cars are designed, quote unquote, normally. And then there are, quote unquote, weird features like considering women in cars and things that might be very helpful, assuming a woman is in the driver's seat. This is also getting very binary. I want to call that out. The reason I bring it up is because the auto industry, I think, has taken some strides over the past 10, 15 years to be a little bit more cognizant of those changes. I think that weird carries a lot of baggage with it. However, I think that every well-meaning person would understand that that's actually about making it more accessible and actually designing something for more people. And so I don't
Well,
know that it's. I guess that's not enforcing the idea that that weird is as bad as normal, or like the Goldilocks zone is as bad as normal. But I think that it fundamentally has virtues that require disruption. Ooh, this is a 15-minute
yeah.
episode.
Yeah, I think it makes me think about things that we have in our language or ideas that we have in culture that sort of embrace weird. And then you simultaneously, right? If someone's talking about realness or authenticity or those types of ideas, some of what they're implying or often is implied in those conversations is to accept the components of someone that may fit outside of normal in like a mathematical sense of like the middle, the average. Whereas, if we talk about like traditional uses of like queerness or even contemporary uses of queerness, right? Like the idea is that it is like characteristics or behaviors or whatever it is that are statistically not in the norm. And you can see where conversations get applied, both of like being desired to be weird in some capacity, even if we're not using that term. Like weird itself, like you said, sort of feels like potentially in like the negative side, like this behavior, this characteristic is unusual in a way that makes me feel a certain way. But even in that, right, like this shower thought that I saw of like is kind of getting at the idea of like, is it better to be normal and forgotten or weird and remembered? Weird being like outside of the cluster of normal behaviors. And I was talking to someone at the company last week, Alana, and we were just having like a off, nothing related to work type of conversation. And at some point it came up, I was like, I most of the time just feel like I'm a lot and I'm trying to like turn down the volume and modulate my behaviors and work from the assumptions that I'm too much. And so I'm not like, I'm trying to tamp down any of the weirdness because I feel like there's so much overflowing all the time. And she was like, I don't feel like you're a lot. You're a lot of things, but I don't feel like you're a lot. And I was like, like that's where that idea of like, is there a Goldilocks zone? How do you find it? Like, where do you like let all the color, even in like the multi-hyphenate world, it's like, I'll be like this part of myself over here and I'll be this part of myself over there. And then I can be my full self in like a distributed sense. And I don't know what to make of that.
Well, I think it's really important to recognize that different situations benefit from different energies. I mean, like, I said the other day that, that there are some people who enter any conversation and turn it into a party. And, like, that can mean a lot of different things. That can mean that, like, the focus comes on them. That can mean that they, like, they change, they elevate the energy of the room. And I think what's like couched in that though is that like when one brings weird into the room, there are certain rooms that need that energy, they need that shift, and they need that license in order to open up and bring different energy themselves into the room. And there are some rooms that are tolerant of that, and there are others that are not, right? And there is a whole span of like, I think, tolerances within those different types of rooms. So like, that's where like I think
like that has the assumption that everyone has weird, right?
I think,
right?
yeah, everyone fundamentally has weird. Even those people, like there is no, the limit does not exist. There is no absolute zero, whatever. There's always someone who's got like even a modicum of weird to them. And if you create zones that foster or hinder that, if you as a contributor to every space that you're in think about whether or not you change the tolerance in that room, I think you also create for yourself a greater sense of license, and you get to tamp down the voice. Because the voice can just say, like, maybe it's not being too much or too little, but it's actually about just how you want to show up in the moment. And then if people want to meet you there, cool. If they don't, oh well. And I mean, I'm also saying this as like, I'm saying this as like, being highly caffeinated right now. And trying to dial it back, which is maybe why I'm talking not as fast as I think. But secondly, I think that it is very, very, I think the self-flagellation can be such a distraction and not improve anything. And I've seen so much value in rooms when I choose, and I think all of us during the throes of the pandemic saw this, when we let go of those things that basically, had us show up in work a certain way or in certain environments a certain way. We let more of that go and just saw each other's hearts and say, this is a hard moment that we're going through. Where are you right now? And that onion was just completely obliterated for a while. I think we were all better for it. I think that we as a collective, we were better for it, even if it was harder to face those emotions.
I think Jess would be really proud of me right now, because I think what you are saying is that weird is a form of intimacy.
Wow. Yeah. I think that is a lens through which weird is not appreciated often enough. And I think that, damn, it's not even a mode. It's just like a truth of weird. I think that's a great way to put it. I think that when you create a sense of intimacy through weird, man, you can change the dynamic of a room and what you can experience, and if necessary, create really powerfully.
Yeah. In my head, I'm seeing like a radar chart with like an unlabeled radar chart, but like at some point, like if you looked at all of your behaviors, right? Like anywhere that it exists beyond a certain line is like your weirdness, like your spikiness. Like everyone's a little bit of a starburst on a radar chart. And the idea that like everyone's spiky somewhere, and if you feel like you can, it is like the sort of accretive nature of like the 1 + 1 = 3 nature of like, if everyone's weird gets to show up, like that whole radar chart is like filled out to the brim if you have like enough people in a space. But if you're like, no one can cross this like whatever threshold that we've determined, like you can't be more than a 3 on anything, then like the room is smaller. Like the people, the ideas, the thoughts, the nature of the room is smaller, in a metaphorical sense.
And I love, this has always been my personality. I love seeing the people who think that like I am not allowed to break 3 in any way. And I wouldn't say that this falls in the weird camp. I think I can fall like in that, but I think I like to push for joy. I like to push for humanity, and that's how I break rooms. But like, if I find someone who like, the best example is someone who doesn't like to laugh or is like tends not to laugh, I'm going to figure out what makes you laugh. By the end of an hour, I'm going to figure out what at least makes you chuckle. And I'm going to give you dad jokes. I'm going to give you intellectual jokes. I'm going to give you something, because the second that I crack that smile in you, intimacy is created. We've gone beyond what's just in our minds, and I've found that there's like a handshake. I think weirdness can do the same thing more powerfully, more quickly. It just takes a little bit more guts to like break the norm just a little bit and like let someone into the weird thing that you talked about with someone, say. The worst that can happen is something horrible, but also the best that can happen is that you create a new level of like unity that can't really be forged that quickly or be that durable in any other way. That's meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess we should do our wrap up corner.
My name is Aaron Powers, and I'm here to make it queer. Okay, yes. Oh, different type of wrap up. I see. I thought that I was doing liberation hip hop. Okay, go. Yeah.
But you're here to make it queer is relevant to this wrap up corner, because I think where we've netted out it's interesting we haven't talked about being remembered at all in this. I think that aspect of the shower thought is something that neither of us seem to glom onto, right? Like it's not why I'm thinking about weirdness to leave a legacy, but what I think we have identified is that the ability to make space for your own weird, for other people's weird, is a form of intimacy. It's a form of sharing your spiked edges and not rounding them down, and that any space in which you are enabling the weird, that you can have an open mind, is probably a happier, healthier space.
Man, if I had a pair of wood blocks to indicate how tight that wrap-up corner is, I would probably use them.
Clap, clap.
I was going to do the whole thing was going to happen, and then I was going to say nothing. We go to the credits, but no, it's great.
Damn it.
I love it.
I blew it.
Oh man.
Critical Nonsense is a Sylvain production.
Brought to you by rules. You must follow them. Do not be weird. Goodbye. As
always, we'd like to thank our executive producer and champion of how weird vanilla really is, Jess Vander.
We'd also like to thank sound engineer and, I think Goldilocks in general, Alex Conte.
We'd like to thank our programming coordinator and master of weird music, Les Jacobs.
And if we might, Nora Mestrich, Sarah Gilbert, isn't it weird for you to be our production crew? Thank you both.
And as always, thanks, Alen.
Thanks, Hanson.
Special thanks.
To Hanson. Yeah, Hanson. That's right. I want to thank Alex Contel for editing this episode, as I have recorded Critical Nonsense al fresco on my back porch. And so I hope that you've all enjoyed all of my neighbors' parrots and whatnot in the background. Thanks also, Alex.
I mean, maybe that's a little bit of weird for this episode, and someone didn't get to this part. They shut it down after the credits. They didn't know that special thanks happen after the credits, and they're saying, that was weird. And we're saying, yeah, you're welcome. Gosh.
You know what? You're right. And speaking of which, thank you to CD Compilations from a while ago.
That's what I call a special thanks.
Oh, that was good. Oh, you spiked that one. You picked it up and you threw it down. Because, I mean, Hanson definitely showed up on a WoW compilation, but it's not the WoW 115 or WoW Dad Party Jams that just plays, Nickelback now. It was, in the original 10.
CBS Bangers. Do you remember the CBS Bangers mixtape on SoundCloud?
No, and I need to check it out. We'll put it in the show notes. We got to put it in the show notes.
If we can find it, it was just yacht rock, but that you would hear in CBS, and there'd just be burr, 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 and the guy coming over the top being CBS Bangers, and it'd be I've been dreaming of a girl like you.
That's right.
To come into my life.
There are moments like this where, first of all, this is a plug for Only Murders in the Building because it's awesome. But also, this is a time where I'm pretty sure you and I are Steve Martin and Martin Short, and Jess is Selena Gomez, and we're the olds talking about 90s stuff. And Jess is what are you guys, really, guys? We're going to do that again? But I will also drop the Pure Moods intro into the show notes because, yes, duh.
Sail away, sail away, sail away.
Ooh, ooh, it's so good.
Sail away. It was
If you are not singing along on your subway or in your car or while you're cooking right now, you're a bad person.
To innocence.
God.
I just remember that it was Return to Innocence and then Sail Away, two Enya songs back to back in the commercial on MTV.
And also the X-Files techno remix, because that's when all we listened to was club music in the middle of the day. Another night, name the song. For some reason, we're at
Real
a
McCoy.
club in... Yeah. You can literally name any of those songs, and it's no, I listened to that at 2:00 in the afternoon. at school. Like that's what I was doing, and it's okay.
If I can wrap a special thanks here,
Oh, yeah,
Aaron, you
let's
will
do
love this. I have been being forced to listen to 3 songs on our bike ride to school every day from my daughter.
I'm ready.
No More I Love Yous by Annie Lennox.
Oh, yes. Rhythmic.
Please Forgive Me by David Gray. Great percussion. And then Stay by Lisa Loeb, which is why I sang it at the beginning, because it was in my head, because she's like, they're just like songs that come on after you play something on Spotify, like the next ones, and she's like, nope, I like that one.
I don't listen hard.
Actually,
I don't
like
pay
these
attention
too.
to the distance that you're running to anyone anywhere. I don't understand what you really care. I'm only hearing negative. No, bad.
No.
Turn the radio on. Okay,
it.
that was it. We did it. I think our special thanks were longer than the episode. Also, thank you, Lisa Loeb. Brown University class of 1996 or 7. She was like a couple years before Duncan Sheik. I think he was class of 98. But listen, alma mater, big ups. Good stuff.
Let's go. All right. Love you. Mean it. Bye.
Bye-bye. Are we recording?
Rolling
Yes,
numbers?
We are. Rolling numbers. All good.